It's something that most people don't understand, but I think it's such a critical issue that we need to be talking about a lot more, because it impacts, whatever issue you care about, whether it's housing or immigration or healthcare, or environmental issues.
Hello and welcome to Keeping Watch, the show that decodes Florida politics while holding elected officials accountable. I'm Natasha Sutherland, and in today's episode, we're going to discuss the ways that everyday Floridians can get involved and make the change that they want to see in our state. Plus, the latest on what's going on with these crazy lawmakers in Tallahassee for legislative session. We'll have Genesis Robinson on to talk about EqualGround, a Black-led voter engagement organization. We'll talk about how they're busing folks to Tallahassee from all over the state and other ways that they keep us informed and engaged. Plus, what do plastic bags, noise ordinances, and rent control have in common? We'll find out when I talk to Jackson Oberlink, Legislative Director for Florida for All, who's going to provide us with our legislative update this week. It's going to be an action-packed show, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Since you are here enjoying our show, please make sure to follow us on all of our socials so you can experience all Florida Watch and Keeping Watch news and information. We are at Florida Watch on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. While you're at it, check out our website at floridawatch.org and our partner website at progressflorida.org.
Welcome back. Our first guest is Genesis Robinson from EqualGround, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about their organization and how they help Floridians have a voice here in Tallahassee. How are you, Genesis?
I'm well. How are you, Natasha?
I'm doing well. You know, it's session. We're getting through it.
Listen, tell me about it. I've been in Tallahassee for, I think, 3 weeks in a row. This is my first week taking a break home. And I say break lightly because obviously we're still tracking and monitoring what's happening up there. So.
And, you know, you've really got to be busy because for you to come to my hometown and I still haven't grabbed a coffee or something with you is something.
I know. We definitely got to change that in the future. I'll be back up next week.
Okay, perfect. All right, I'm gonna hold you to that. So Genesis, for folks that are listening that aren't familiar with who you are and your organization, can you talk a little bit about who is Genesis? How do you get into this work?
Yeah. So I am a native of Daytona Beach, Florida, born and raised in Daytona, which is Volusia County. I got my start in the political space when I was fresh out of high school. My mentor decided to run for office, and he recruited me to come on board and serve as his campaign volunteer, so to speak. And, my job was to recruit other folks to help out on the campaign. And during that time, I just, caught a bug for working in politics. The fact that so many people felt like politics was this distant thing that they couldn't touch or feel, but it just had an overwhelming influence on their lives, sort of inspired me to get involved and be a part of that process. And so I caught the bug, got involved with a lot of local boards at the city level, moved to Florida A&M, or moved to Tallahassee and attended Florida A&M, where I studied political science, interned up at the Capitol with the member from Volusia County. And then after graduating, moved to Washington, D.C. To do an internship with the Congressional Black Caucus, where I was placed with a member from Florida for about 4 months. And then when my time ended, I was like, listen, I've already graduated from college. I'm not going back to Florida. I need a job. Find me a job some way, somehow. And, we were able to make it happen. I had to work for free for about 2 months. But after those 2 months, they found me a permanent position. And I worked in D.C. for about 4 years. Then moved back to Florida in 2016. Got married, started my family, and set roots here in Volusia County, and worked on a few state races. And then after the 2020 cycle, EqualGround reached out, gave me a call, and I came on board with them. And so it's been a great honor to serve as the political director for EqualGround. For those of you who may not know, EqualGround is a Black-led voting rights organization. We're based in Central Florida, out of Orlando, but we really work throughout the state. And our main purpose and goal is to just increase civic engagement in Black communities. We're very intentional
Hmm.
about the work that we do specifically in Black communities, because we are often the ones at the brunt of a lot of policy decisions and things that happen. And so we want to do our part to get our community more engaged, to have an impact on what those decisions look like, right? I used to work for a member that said, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And so we want to make sure that our community is not just on the menu, but we're at the table.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so important. I think it's great that politics was able to snatch you up so young, right? So you've almost grown
Yeah.
up in this process. I think that's really cool. I did not know that about you. And I love the mission that Equal Ground has. I know in the past you and I have worked together when it came to redistricting and talking to Floridians in the state about how those new
hmm
congressional maps are going to affect them. And so, yeah, anything and everything that we can do to get people civically engaged is incredibly important. So, as you mentioned, you've been in Tallahassee quite a bit. Do you all,
Yeah.
as Equal Ground, have any lobby days coming up? Which, for folks that don't know, lobby days is when organizations come up to Tallahassee during session to talk to their legislators about the issues that matter most to them.
Yeah, thank you for that. So we actually do have lobby days coming up. Wednesday, March 29th, we will be in Tallahassee, advocating for and against some bills. But one of the things that we're doing very different this year is we're having a dedicated staffer to be in Tallahassee every week of session. So that's something unique for us. We're a smaller nonprofit organization. So it takes a considerable amount of resources, but it's that important, right? Every year we see a tax levied down by the legislature. And so we felt it appropriate to have someone there to be able to go to committee meetings, to be able to meet with members, to be able to follow the policy discussion on a weekly basis versus trying to concentrate and put everything in one day. And so while we are excited about the fact that we will be there on March 29th with a few of our partners, we're also very excited that we have an opportunity to be there every week. So let's talk a little bit about what we're doing on the 29th. So March 29th, which is a Wednesday, we have buses coming from all throughout the state, South Florida, Jacksonville, Tampa, St. Pete area, Orlando, Daytona Beach, and they will converge on Tallahassee, right? And so we are meeting and determining now which members that we'll have an opportunity to meet with, as well as some committee meetings to give folks an opportunity to watch the committee process at work, as well as maybe even peep in on session if they're going to be in session that day. So, as you know, Natasha, the schedule typically comes out, right now they have a 48-hour notice. So that's not helping us so much when it
Yeah.
comes to planning because they can notice with the
Nope.
minimum of 48 hours. But we're excited. We're looking forward to it. This will probably be the largest lobby day of the organization's history. The organization has been around for about 3 years now doing this type of work. And so we're excited to see our lobby day continue to grow and expand year after year. If there's anyone who's listening who is interested in riding the bus, if you text the word Equal Ground, all one word, to 52886, you will receive back a link. In that link will be a button for you to register to attend, to come up to Tallahassee with us. We provide breakfast, we provide lunch, and we provide dinner. So, we want to make it as easy as possible. We know that folks have so many other responsibilities and things that they're watching and monitoring. And if it's complicated, right, it likely won't happen. And so we want to take all the guesswork out of it and make it easy as possible. So yes, text Equal Ground to 52886. There'll be a link on there that has the information on where the buses will be stopping and originating from. If you're near one of those cities, please, we invite you to hop on the bus and come to Tallahassee on Equal Ground's dime and, get a chance to take a look at the legislative process.
That's great. So I love that this is the largest this year. I think that's really awesome to hear that people are interested, that people are wanting to get involved with your organization. They want to come up to Tallahassee, even though they don't know what the schedule is going to be. None of us does, right? But they're
Yeah,
like, you know what? It's fine. It's worth it. We're going up there. We're going to talk to these elected officials. We're going to tell them what's on our minds.
right.
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to having
Yeah,
y'all up here.
it's interesting because we're equally excited, right? This the fact that people are so committed to being involved, I think, really speaks to what's happening in our state. The fact that
Yeah.
folks have saw things that they don't like and they want to do something about it, right? Every year we do a
Mhm.
training called Take the Lead, and Take the Lead is essentially a training that we created at Equal Ground to basically say, hey, you see a problem in your community, why don't you take the lead? You have an issue with this problem, why don't you take the lead? And so we're equipping and empowering people to identify a problem and do something about it. And this year we had over 300 people to register for that training. Again, also a record
That's
for the
awesome.
organization. So yeah, so we were excited to be joined by Leader Fentress Driscoll, who was our featured guest of the night. I had an opportunity to interview her and let our participants hear from her about her priorities as well as the priorities of the caucus, as she has made history as the first Black woman to lead the Democratic caucus
Yes.
in the Florida legislature. And so we're excited about it, but I think talking about the attendance and the fact that we have so many people participating really taps in to an energy in this state where folks are just like, I got to do something to get involved because I don't like what I'm seeing.
Absolutely. And to be a Black-led organization bringing Black Floridians to Tallahassee to I love it. Congrats. That's phenomenal. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, we're really
So,
excited about it and look forward to it.
yeah, so with the issues, and so you briefly touched on the fact that you think that maybe the political climate here in the state of Florida is part of what is getting folks so engaged. Can you speak to
Mhm.
the issues that you all as Equal Ground are working on this session, whether it's bills you're for or bills that you're against?
Yeah, so Equal Ground as a whole, we're primarily a voting rights organization. That is truly the reason why the organization was created to protect voting rights as well as to monitor and watch election administration efforts in the state. But obviously, the attacks on Black folks have been vast, right? And so
Mhm.
we recognized, like last year, that we have to really do more than just focus on election administration. In a perfect world, that could be our just one little niche, right? But when you look up and you
Right.
see the First Amendment being attacked, when you see education being under attack, when you see a woman's right to choose under attack, LGBTQ plus individuals under attack, right? It calls for us to do more. And so, again, although we're primarily a voting rights organization, this year we're looking at a wide range of bills and issues that we're focused on. But in the area of voting rights, there's still continued attacks, right? So after the 2020 election, it was said by leaders of this state that that was the safest and most secure election in the history of our state. But what we saw in the
Right.
two legislative sessions after that was continued attack on voting rights, right? With Senate Bill 90, the elimination of drop boxes and putting in new ID requirements for folks who wanted to vote by mail, as well as, with Senate Bill 524 that came last year, we saw the creation of a police force, right, around voting. And
Mhm.
so we recognized that some of those things were done in an effort to intimidate. But we took it as a responsibility to educate our community best we could because we didn't want that to serve as a deterrent for folks to be able to get involved, right? Yes, they may have made it harder, but
Mhm.
you just got to, refine, know the rules, and do what you got to do to make sure that your voice is counted. And so, last year that was a big fight with the redistricting. Florida went into 2022 with four minority access seats where Black people were guaranteed essentially to be elected in those positions. And we left 2022 with only two of those such seats. And that's because our
Yeah.
governor made it a priority for him to eliminate Congressional District 5, which was held by Congressman Al Lawson, as it was currently drawn, and eliminate Congressional District 10, which was held by Congresswoman Val Demings. And so, as a result, right now, in a state as large as Florida, in a state that has the black population that it has, there are only 2 seats that are guaranteed to elect a black person, and they are both in South Florida. And so that is a danger and a very disastrous thing for black representation in this state. And so, obviously, we joined in with others to fight back on that. You and I hit the road last year to travel the state and
Yep.
talk about the impact of that, right? And so, we're just continuing to build upon that work. One of the things that we're closely watching this year is House Joint Resolution 129 and Senate Joint Resolution 1410. And so, essentially, what they're looking to do with this bill is raise the threshold needed to approve ballot amendments to the Constitution, right? And so the reason this is very
Uh-huh.
important is because it could ultimately lead to us having less of a voice. Right now, the ballot amendment process has really been a secret weapon in Florida that activists and organizers have used to sort of go about effectuating the change that they want to see when they're ignored by Tallahassee, right? In 2018, we saw Amendment 4 pass with about 64% of the vote. And then in 2020, I think we saw minimum wage pass in the state of Florida with about a little over 60% of the vote. And so if this measure were to go into place, they would raise that threshold needed from 60% to 66.67%. And so that's very important because, like I said, Amendment 4 only passed with 64%. Minimum wage only passed with about a little over 60%. And so if this new threshold was in place, those 2 measures would not have passed in the state of Florida. And so it's important that we, make folks aware of that. Fortunately, even if the legislature acts and passes it out of the legislature, it still must come before voters on the ballot. So we'll have an opportunity to stop
Okay.
it then. It's not something that will go into place automatically, but it's something that we don't even want to consider because it just really weakens the voice of voters to do something like that.
I love how, we the legislature needs just a simple majority, right, to pass things.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, that was the case when it came to Floridians making changes to our constitution via these ballot initiatives, right? And so
Mhm.
now it's 60%, and now they want to raise it again. So it's sort of this moving target, if you will. That's
Yeah.
really interesting. I didn't realize that was happening.
Yeah. So, I think it speaks to the fact that they know that it is an effective tool and they want to do everything in their
Mhm.
power to sort of take it away, right? Like, they wouldn't have a desire to raise this threshold if they didn't know that we could reach the 60%. And so now, because I don't think there's been many ballot initiatives that have reached that high of a threshold, they feel like that's the comfortable number to place it at, right? Because it's like, hey, they haven't hit 66% yet, so let's move the goal line here, if you will, right? And so, it's unfortunate. And to your point, yes, there are many things that pass in the legislature off of a simple majority vote. Yet for folks, citizens and residents to have a say, it has a higher threshold. And we're okay uh, with the safeguards and things being put in place to ensure that the Constitution is not just changed, on a whim, right? It's important,
Mhm.
but we think that 60% is a high enough threshold to get consensus amongst Floridians, and to move it any higher is just truly punitive to the people that are trying to do the work
Yep.
because there's so many safeguards in place. You have to get signatures, you have to get them from certain areas of the state. They all can't be from one area. You have to go to the Supreme Court for review. So it's not like there's a process, right, in place. This is truly punitive to stop us from being able to get around them when they don't act.
Yeah, I mean, there are already enough hurdles just to get it on the ballot for then voters to have to vote on it at a certain point. Yeah. I feel like that says a lot on its own. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. I'm curious, I know it feels like a long way away, but post
Mhm.
session, what kinds of work will Equal Ground engage in after session?
Yeah, so we'll be out on the road. We may take a small break because, obviously following legislative session and keeping up with all these attacks is daunting. But we'll probably
Yes.
take a little bit of a break. But when we return, we will be doing a round of voter education efforts. We have to go out into the community and let folks know what happened. So for individuals who are not following the legislative process in real time, we think it's important to say, hey, this is what the budget looks like. This is how much money is for various programs, and here are the grant opportunities that you may be able to tap into for your local community. Here's how your legislator performed. This is the things that they voted on. This is the money that's in the budget, right? And so we'll be out partnering with churches, community organizations, Greek letter organizations, pretty much anyone that is willing to allow us space to come in and share. We'll be out doing that.
Awesome. Well, if you all need any help, give me a call.
Okay,
Always happy to partner
absolutely.
with you all. And for folks that want to find out more, is there a website or anywhere they can go to connect with you all, Equal Ground?
Yeah, so we're on all the socials at EqualGround. Then our website is EqualGround, equal-ground.com. Almost said www. I was about to date myself. But
Don't do that.
equal-ground.com, and then again we're equal ground on all the social media sites. But in addition to that, we put out a weekly newsletter, and I kind of forgot to mention that. So every week during legislative session, I author a newsletter that goes out on Mondays at 11 o'clock. And so if you text the word equal ground, all one word, equal ground, to 52886, you'll be added to our mailing list. And so moving forward, you'll have the opportunity to get that update and use it, for however you like, and to just kind of stay up to date with what's going on in the legislative process.
That's great. I actually get those newsletters. I did not know that you authored them, so they're really great. I actually really enjoy getting those.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I have a headache every Sunday through Monday when it goes out.
Worth it, right? Totally worth it to
Yeah,
keep us
yeah,
informed.
yeah. I guess so.
All right. Well, yeah. Well, thank you so much, Genesis. Really appreciate you joining us on this program to share a little bit about the work that Equal Ground is doing. And we'll talk to you again soon. Take care.
All right. Thank you.
What a great interview. I feel super energized to get involved. I hope that you do too. Stay tuned for our legislative session update next.
Nothing changes in local or national politics unless you vote. And due to recent changes in Florida law, all requests for vote-by-mail ballots expired at the end of 2022. To continue to receive an absentee ballot and be able to vote by mail, contact your local supervisor of elections at myfloridaelections.com/contact-your-SOE and request your absentee ballot today.
And we're back. So, like I asked you earlier, what's the connection between plastic bags, noise ordinances, and rent control? Well, we have Jackson Oberlink from Florida for All to talk to us a little bit about what's going on in legislative session today. Jackson, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
So, tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do.
Yeah, so my name's Jackson. I am the new legislative director with Florida for All. And I was born and raised in South Florida, so I've been here my entire life. And I really care a lot about this state. I spent a lot of time working kind of in the climate space. And I've moved on to, broader progressive politics, which has been really exciting. Done a little bit of campaign work, and now I'm getting to work with Florida for All, which is really great, doing our legislative work on the ground here in Tallahassee. I live in Tallahassee now full time. I've been here for about 7 years, and I really love it. And so I'm just happy to get to work for an organization like Florida for All and stand up for the policies and the people that I really care for here in our state capital.
Love that. Yeah, I was able to catch you doing some public testimony in one of the committees, and I thought, man, it takes a lot of guts to do that. Have you always just been doing public speaking, or is this something that you've developed in this role?
Thank you. That's kind of you. I I've done public speaking, throughout my life in different kinds of ways. I was a theater kid in high school.
Aha.
I feel like as most good organizers are. That's something that I'm definitely used to doing. But it's different doing it in committee when you're staring down a bunch of legislators who may or may not agree with what you have to say.
Hmm.
It's good experience, and I enjoy doing it, and kind of being the voice for the people who can't show up, or take time off work to come to the state capitol and advocate for the things that they believe in.
Yeah, that's so important. I appreciate what you're doing as well. It's essential that everybody have a voice in our state. So thank you for that. Speaking of voices, so what do you think about what's been happening in session, just in sort of a general sense, as far as the last week or so? Anything that really jumps out for you?
Yeah, well, it's been a tough session. Session has just recently officially started on March 7th.
Hmm.
So, but it feels like it's been going on forever. We
Yeah.
had like 7 weeks of committee hearings before that. So it feels like it just, we've been doing this for a while now, but it's been crazy. With the new Republican supermajority, they control over 2/3 of the body in the House and the Senate, which
Yeah.
means that they get to fast track any bill that they want, change the process, change the rules, and really suppress the voice of the people. So that's what we've been seeing a lot of really bad corporate actors pushing some terrible legislation through. But we've also seen a lot of great opposition from people who are fed up with
Mhm.
it and taking the time to come here to Tallahassee and advocate. Recently, I think it was last week, Equality Florida had their lobby days where they had hundreds of people showing
Yeah.
up to fight for queer rights, which is amazing. And then, Gen Cleo, which is a youth climate justice organization that I used to work with, they're having their lobby days, which is great. They're coming here to fight for climate justice. So it's always exciting to see people mobilizing, um, and really making their voices heard, even when it's so difficult like it is right now. But yeah, we've had all kinds of legislation moving. I think most recently, a lot of people have been hearing about a lot of the attacks on the trans community, which has been really horrifying. There are
Absolutely.
bills that get rid of gender affirming care for people under the age of 18. Things that allow, like the courts to take custody away from parents who support their trans children. Transgender bathroom bans. I mean, it's really terrible stuff, and that's just something that hits close to home for me because, as a member of the LGBT community, I have a lot of queer friends and family who would be impacted by this legislation, and there's no other way to say it other than they're trying to commit trans genocide essentially across the country. But it's really inspiring to see all of the amazing work that's being done by groups like Equality Florida and Planned Parenthood to fight these terrible bills.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, bottom line is it's healthcare, and people
Yeah.
should have access to whatever healthcare they need in whatever form that it is, right? Um, well, it's good to hear. I've heard quite a bit from folks about the amount of advocacy that's happening, the amount of people from different organizations saying that for them, it's been like sort of a record number of folks coming up to Tallahassee to make their voices heard. And I think, in spite of the supermajority, like you said, um, I love to see that Floridians are recognizing the fact that their voice matters now more than ever. So that's awesome. Let's jump into something that I've been hearing about a lot as well: local preemption, preempting local governments. Um, what is that? And how is that? Why is that a problem? Like, what's wrong with that?
Yeah, that is a great question. It's a tool that the Florida legislature specifically loves to use. And it's something that most people don't understand, but I think it's such a critical issue that we need to be talking about a lot more, because it impacts, whatever issue you care about, whether it's housing or immigration or healthcare, or environmental issues. Preemption impacts all of that. And it is one of the favorite tools of our, conservative-led Florida legislature. So preemption is a neutral tool. It's neither good or bad. It can be used either way. But basically what it is when the state government takes away the ability of a local government, like a city or a county, to regulate a specific issue. So the first time that I ever really thought about preemption was the 2008 plastic bag ban.
Oh
And this is
yeah.
something that I used to explain to people a lot because it's a simple one. And basically what happened is Miami-Dade County decided to ban plastic bags.
Mhm.
They're right on the ocean. It's really harmful for a lot of sea life and sea turtles. And so this was just something that they were trying to do to protect, the ocean, which was great. And as someone who comes from the environmental world, that was something I was really excited about, seeing those actions be taken. And then the state legislature, as usually happens,
Uh-huh.
plastics companies and oil companies who benefit greatly from the production of plastic bags decided to step in, use their money and their political power to get the state legislature to introduce a preemption,
Mhm.
which took away the ability for municipalities in Florida to regulate plastic bags. Um, After that happened, what we saw is Florida, I believe, was the first state to do it, if not one of the first states to do it. That preemption bill then swept across the country in different conservative led legislatures, copying the same thing that Florida did. And so this is something that we see a lot of the time with preemption. It's happening this session, where Florida is just kind of like the guinea pig for the rest of the country on what crazy preemptions can we try to push here in Florida first, and then get the rest of the country, specifically conservative legislatures, to try next.
So what you're telling me is that whether we live in Tallahassee or Miami, the Florida Keys, um, when the state legislature decides to preempt, they're basically saying that we all have to abide by the same rules or the same laws up and down the state, which takes like 8 hours to drive up and down, I want to add. Um, so doesn't
Right.
really matter. We all that's it. That's the rule. So whether we locally like it or not, that's what's going to have to happen. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And when you hear, conservatives talk about, small government, this is the opposite of that.
Hmm.
This is, trying to get the entire state to conform to a certain set of policies. And a lot of the times, like it takes away from, the local culture and the diversity that we have here in our state across local governments. And that's really disappointing. I think that a lot of the reason that we see preemption as much as we do here in Florida is because the far right has taken over a lot of our government across the state. And some of the only places where progressives still have power is in our local governments, and in cities like Orange County, where the citizens just voted overwhelmingly for rent control, or in Miami-Dade County, where there are still like some progressives in local power, and so they want to take away the ability for those municipalities, those cities and counties, and those citizens to make their voice heard.
So yeah, the rent control. That was something that I thought was popping quite a bit on social media. So you mentioned that now we can't do that if this bill goes through. What's going on with that?
Yes. So there is a really bad bill right now that has passed the Senate already. And it is Senate Bill 102, House Bill 627. So this is a priority of the Senate president. And it is an omnibus housing bill, which means it includes lots of different housing initiatives in it. It is being sponsored by Senator Alexis Calatayud. And basically, what it does is it preempts rent control entirely in the state of Florida, which, as many of us know, we are in an affordable housing crisis here.
Yep.
And the last thing we need to be doing is taking away one of the very few tools that we do have to help regulate the affordability crisis. The bill also has a bunch of other really terrible things in it, including massive corporate tax giveaways for big developers. It allows for them to get out of paying their taxes if they put money into affordable housing funds. But the affordable housing funds are used to incentivize affordable housing, which,
Right.
I say that in quotes because it's at 120% average median income. AKA in Miami-Dade County, they can charge $2,600 a month for a 2-bedroom and call that affordable housing.
Wow.
So I don't really consider that affordable housing. And there are other preemption elements to that bill as well, that preempt municipalities from having a say over certain proposed developments in their own communities, if it fits certain standards. Supposedly, if they offer like less than half of their units that they're building at an affordable price, based on whatever their definition that is, then municipalities don't even get a say in where those developments go and how they're built. There are some good parts of the bill, but overwhelmingly, there are just some really terrible poison pills in there that make it a disaster for our state.
So, as an advocate and folks that are listening, is there anything we can do about any of this? Like, what if we don't like this idea? What can we do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I always am telling people, if you don't know who your state representatives are, get to know them, especially when they're not in session. When they're home in district, you can schedule meetings with them just like any other corporate lobbyist can. You are a constituent, and they oftentimes will want to meet with you and hear your concerns. But during session, you should be calling them, sending them emails about policies that you agree with or don't agree with, and really make your voice heard. This session, it's really hard because the Republicans have such a strong majority to stop bills that they want to get done, and this is a priority. In all likelihood, it will pass. It passed its second it passed its second House committee yesterday, and then it was supposed to have one more committee before it goes to the House floor. The Republicans took away the third committee and immediately scheduled it for the House floor this week. So it will be being voted on this week, which is insane,
Yeah.
that they can just do that, because the public can't give testimony when it's on the floor. The only opportunity we have to give input is in committees. And so they're directly limiting input, which is why it's so important to make our voices heard even more so. So there are groups like Florida Rising that are organizing events like Wake Up Wednesday, to have demonstrations and call attention to housing issues and preemption issues. And I think those are really great ways to get involved.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I strongly, constantly encourage people, believe it or not, they have phone numbers. You can call them. They have email addresses. You can send them emails. You can flood their inboxes. I remember watching a session meeting one time on TV, and a legislator holding up like a printed version of people's emails and going, look, I'm getting all these emails and people are really mad about this bill, so we can't do this. And so this empowers our elected officials to advocate on our behalf, right? And represent us like they're meant to. So don't be shy. Send that email, get in those DMs. They have Twitters now. They have, Instagram, they have Facebook, and they're in them. So you should be too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree more. And social media is a more powerful tool than ever,
Yeah,
currently. So, we shouldn't only be using social media, but definitely make your voice heard. Call out your state representatives, because they're not used to people paying attention to what's going on in Tallahassee.
right.
They've been getting away with a lot of stuff because people aren't seeing what happens up here. It's so far away from their districts and their constituents. But when their voters, the people who get to elect them, start paying attention, it makes them nervous, especially, more vulnerable incumbents, people in swing districts. So those are especially the people who had narrow elections. Putting pressure on them specifically is really important too.
Oh, I love that strategy. Is there anything else that you want to update us on before we let you go?
Yes. So unfortunately, I think the biggest bill that I want to talk about today, there are actually two quick ones that I will bring up. Um, but House Bill 1515 and Senate Bill 170. So this is the bill that we call the mother of all preemptions, or the Death Star preemption bill for Star Wars fans.
Wow.
But basically, what this, yeah, it's intense language, but rightfully so, because this is a bill that has been dreamt up by corporations and corporate donors. And we would be the first state in the country to pass any kind of bill like this. No one has ever done anything like this before because it's so terrible. But essentially, what it does is it allows for any business or a corporation to sue a local government for any ordinance that they pass that they don't like. And as soon as that lawsuit is filed, they cannot enforce that ordinance. The city and county, it's null and void temporarily. And so until the end of the lawsuit. And at the end of the lawsuit, regardless of who wins, the municipality is still responsible for their own legal fees. And if they lose, the business or corporation can collect their legal fees from the municipality. So this has the ability to bankrupt and financially burden our cities and counties across the state, and give the final say to corporations over what our local governments can pass. So it's a really terrible bill. It has already passed the Senate. They are moving bills really fast this year. And so it did get a lot of opposition from the Democrats on the Senate side. And it just had its second committee hearing on the House side. And I actually, the sponsor for the bill, Representative Brackett, he is the state representative for my hometown where I'm from, Vero Beach, Florida. So, it gets a little personal for me, at least,
Right.
because this bill, I was thinking about how it would specifically impact his district, my home where my family still lives. And growing up, the Indian River Lagoon is in Vero. It's the most biodiverse estuary in all of North America. And if this bill were to pass, corporate polluters like Big Sugar and sewage companies and chemical manufacturers could sue Indian River County and Vero Beach governments for any ordinance they pass trying to protect the Indian River Lagoon, to stop them from dumping pollutants into it. Sea turtle nesting protections would be put in danger by, beachside bars who want to, have light pollution that would really be harmful to sea turtle nesting. There are all kinds of ways that this would impact Vero directly. And so I talked about that a little bit in my testimony, but this bill, just the implications of it are so far reaching, and we don't even fully understand how everything that it would do, because it's just never been done before. So that bill is really terrifying, and we are doing everything we can to stop it. It is one more hearing on the House side if they don't remove the final committee like they did with the housing bill. So we really need people to get involved on that one and call it out for what it is, which is a big corporate giveaway for the donors for DeSantis's presidential campaign and the legislators' campaigns. So it's a really bad one.
So what you're telling me is, as if corporations haven't bought enough of our state, right? So as if they already have these folks in Tallahassee, these elected officials that they bankroll their campaigns, they have Ron DeSantis to push policies for them. And so it's almost like they've bled into what's left, which is the local government, right? That was like the last line of defense in us being able to have a say in how our communities are, right? So if there's like a noise ordinance by my house and like, I don't know, McDonald's is like, not to call them out, but or whatever, XYZ company is like, we don't want this noise ordinance. We're going to sue the city of Tallahassee. And now I'm living next to like this noisy business. Like, is that possible? Something like that?
Oh, absolutely. This
Oh,
would impact, as I was talking about earlier with preemption,
yeah.
it touches every single issue. So this is housing, this is environment, this is immigration, this is labor. Like any issue that your local government handles, this would impact. So a
Wow.
noise ordinance is included.
Yeah.
And it's just unbelievable. Last year, a similar bill to this was passed by both the Senate and the House, and Governor DeSantis vetoed it, which was great. But this bill itself also was introduced last year, and it died in committee. But it's back again, and it looks like it's going to pass all the way through the legislature this time. And hopefully DeSantis will veto it again. But there's a lot of pressure for him to sign this, and there's a lot of corporate money that's incentivizing it as well. But Republicans have a lot of the times described this bill as the preemption to end all preemptions because it's their favorite tool to use. And it's such a common practice now that there's a preemption on every issue every year. But as this bill is moving in committee, there was another preemption bill that was heard. So clearly they have other ideas. There are more things that they can still preempt.
Oh
And
my
this
God.
bill is truly horrifying. It's House Bill 1417. And basically, it's the ultimate landlord preemption bill, preempting municipalities from regulating the landlord tenant relationship in any way whatsoever, taking away all tenants' rights protections on the local level across the state, directly targeting the work that is being done in Miami and Orlando to create tenants' bills of rights and all other kinds of protections like security deposits and noticing requirements that would be completely gutted if this bill were to pass. So they're not just stopping with this bill.
So I love how they have that housing bill and they call it the Live Local Act. Um, but how am I supposed to live local if y'all are going to let me have my local community do what it needs to do so that I actually enjoy living here? Like, I don't, Jackson, I don't understand.
I,
What?
I don't understand either. I mean, ultimately, um, affordable housing is such a big political issue right now.
Huge.
If you surveyed voters in 2022, they would all tell you that the number one issue that they were concerned about here in Florida was affordable housing. So they have to address it. They have to do something about it. But their solutions are these fake solutions that are really about giving money to their big donors, to developers, these top down solutions. And as we've learned time and time again, trickle down economics doesn't work. These bills aren't going to result in price cuts for consumers. It never does. So they clearly haven't learned that lesson, and we're still dealing with that same mentality time and time again. Yesterday in committee during this hearing for House Bill 1417, the bill's sponsor was, being extremely short and cold and brief in all of the answers she was giving when committee members were asking her questions about how bad this bill was. She was giving one word responses because even they don't want to defend this bill. They know what this is. They know it's a bad bill and it's unpopular. So I was the only one there to testify against it. There was several other people testifying because they brought in all of their other corporate lobbyists to talk up how good this bill is. They got in a line and said their talking points, but that's the game they play.
Well, I appreciate you doing what you're doing. And I look at this, listeners, as an invitation to join Jackson if you can, whether that's coming to Tallahassee to testify in committee or submitting a form in opposition to these bills that he mentioned, and we'll link it in the show notes, and doing anything and everything in your power and in your ability to affect the outcome of these terrible bills, because Florida will not be the same Florida that we remember after these bills become law. So Jackson, thank
Absolutely.
you so much. Really appreciate you
Yeah,
joining us to provide our session update. And I hope you'll join us again soon.
of course. And just one more thing, I don't like to end on such a sour note. I do a lot of legislative updates and they can seem pretty depressing and disheartening. But ultimately, our presence in the Capitol is disruptive. And when people get involved and pay attention, it does make a difference. They wouldn't be trying to limit our voice so much if it didn't impact them. So don't lose hope, get involved. Call your representatives, get involved with groups like Florida Rising, because it does make a difference. So thank you for having me.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Florida has faced a growing affordability crisis with the cost of rent, utility bills, and insurance going through the roof. All while Ron DeSantis has tried to divide us and distract us from the favors he does for his billionaire corporate donors to advance his political ambitions. DeSantis Watch is a project dedicated to shining a spotlight on the governor's failures of leadership that make all of us less free. Go to DeSantisWatch.org and join the movement. This show and all of our work would be impossible without your support. At Florida Watch, we do research, create graphics and video content, and keep an eye on issues that matter to all of us. We also work hard to keep things fun and informative with our goal to hold accountable extreme politicians like Ron DeSantis. Head over to FloridaWatch.org and click donate to support our cause to help keep up the fight to keep Florida educated, fair, and tolerant.
What a great show. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you found this useful and informative. As always, if you have any questions for us at Keeping Watch, please send us an email at podcast@floridawatch.org. We'll be sure to include the links in the show notes for you to look at later on. Be sure to join us next time on Keeping Watch. Take care. See you soon.